So let's talk about Gaza. Now, this ceasefire has been going for a couple of weeks. They have received back a grand total of 7 female hostages. That's it so far. This is supposed to go on for 42 days total. And each week they're supposed to get out another tranche of hostages. About 18 of the 33 are alive. That's the numbers. They've finally gotten a list of the total numbers coming out. Now, this has not been released yet. The news is not public yet about the other hostages, but it sounds like we will get some very bad news regarding the Bibas family in the near future. This is just reading between the lines with what's been going on there. If you've been following those little babies that were taken hostage on October 7th, the Bibas family, it sounds like we may get some bad news about them. And I'm not positive about that, but I'm told that there's some bad news coming that is really shaking the foundations of support for this ceasefire. And this is what I'm hearing. The worst news about the ceasefire is that this is giving Hamas a chance to reconstitute and reassert control over Gaza and really roll back much of the progress that the Israelis have made in the 15 months that they've been at war. The IDF managed to eliminate something like 17,000 of Hamas's troops so far in this conflict. At the beginning, it was said that they only had 25,000 max, so that should indicate that they did a pretty good job of really decimating Hamas's ability to govern or be a military threat. However, it now appears that Hamas has been able to replenish their ranks throughout the course of the war and especially during the ceasefire. Because what we're seeing are images like this one coming out after the ceasefire took effect. All of these guys who, during the conflict, before the ceasefire took hold, were hiding in a hole somewhere or running around in civilian clothes, are now proudly wearing their uniforms, waving their Hamas flags, wearing their Hamas banners, and carrying weapons in public, and are reasserting control over the Gaza Strip. So they are maintaining control of the aid that's coming in, distributing it to who they will, selling it in the marketplaces, making money off the people there. They are conducting patrols around Gaza and enforcing the law. They are rounding up and summarily executing or torturing any Gazans that they believe collaborated in any way with the IDF or even just accepted aid from the IDF. So if your grandmother was sick and you took her to the IDF and the IDF medics treated her, now Hamas is going to come looking for you and probably shoot you in the back of the kneecaps or something for cooperating with the IDF. Obviously, as barbaric as it comes, that's no surprise. These people are barbaric people. And so this is causing no shortage of consternation inside circles in Israel. As a matter of fact, there's an article in Israel Hayom, which is the most popular newspaper right now in Israel, that says, despite the ceasefire, renewing Gaza offensive is inevitable. Contrary to President Trump's assessment, it appears the recent ceasefire and hostage deal will not bring an end to the war. This comes from both sides, the Palestinian side and the Israeli side. There was a senior Palestinian official that said Gaza is like 1 million Jenin camps, Jenin being one of the cities in Samaria that has seen major IDF operations over the past 2 weeks As the ceasefire took effect in Gaza, Israel turned its military attention to Jenin and other cities like Nablus in Judea and Samaria, what they call the West Bank. And they've been conducting major military operations there, taking out lots of Hamas terrorists, collecting up just boatloads of weapons and explosives and things like that. It's very clear that even if they were able to wipe out all of Hamas inside Gaza, there's still a very significant Hamas presence inside the West Bank. And so this war is nowhere close to being over. That's the takeaway. The conclusion that's being reached by the Israelis, especially a very significant sort of right leaning group of Israeli commanders in the IDF, who are reaching the conclusion that a renewed ground offensive is going to be absolutely inevitable. They have to do it. And of course, Donald Trump wants very badly to be able to claim victory, just like Biden did, to be able to say that just by force of will alone, Donald Trump was able to end the war. In some sense, Donald Trump's force of will is a force to be reckoned with, no question. But Benjamin Netanyahu is sort of caught between a Trump and a hard place because the stated goals of the war are sort of flittering away. They have managed to retrieve about 2/3 of the total hostages so far. And hopefully before long, they will have the vast majority of the remaining living hostages out of Gaza. I doubt they'll ever get all of the remaining hostages out. Hamas is going to always try to maintain some bargaining chips to exert pressure on Israel not to just go in and wipe them all out. Israel, in working to get back its remaining living hostages, has unfortunately given up most of its bargaining chips already. There was this other hostage that was supposed to be released before the 4 female hostages were released on Saturday. And because she was a civilian, the whole deal was that all the female civilian hostages had to be released before they started releasing members of the IDF. Hamas says, well, this woman wasn't actually a civilian. She's a member of the Israeli Space Force, which I, no, she's not. But Israel said, okay, well, we're not going to allow people to return to their homes in the north until we get back that female hostage. You said she was going to get released. That was part of the deal. And they didn't release her because she's being held by PIJ, I believe. So, as part of Israel's deal, they were supposed to let people start to return to their homes in the north. They said, no, we're not going to do that. They came to an impasse and the hostage deal almost broke down. Then Israel relented, I think, under pressure from Donald Trump or from the Trump administration. Israel backed down and said, okay, you promised to release her. So they still haven't released this additional female hostage that was supposed to be released. They say they're going to release her Thursday or Friday. She should be released. But in order to secure that, Israel had to go ahead and allow people to start moving back to their homes in the north through the Netzarim corridor, which they're not being searched. They're not conducting searches of these people. They're not allowing them to bring vehicles, but they're not vetting the people coming back to the north. And this presents a direct threat to Israel. They have no idea who's going back up there. And doubtless, some of the people who are moving back up to the north, because they say 300,000 people have now headed back to the northern part of Gaza. which is a wasteland. I mean, there's no water left, there's no electricity left, there's precious little buildings left. It's basically just a field of rubble. Where are 300,000 people going to go and stay? And what are they going to eat? And how are they going to get water? Whatever. I don't know. But you can bet some of those people are Hamas fighters, and they likely know where there are still some buried missile arrays, rocket arrays, maybe some arms caches or tunnels haven't been found yet. So they present a direct military threat to Israel. And this group of IDF generals is pointing that out. And they're like, this is a disaster for Israel. Now, Hamas is reasserting its control over Gaza, while the Palestinian Authority says that they're on board with not allowing Hamas to govern again in Gaza. That's not good enough for the Israelis. That's not in keeping with their stated objective, which is not to get some promise from a, extremist Muslim group that they're not going to let another extremist Muslim group manage the Gaza Strip. No, their stated objective is to destroy Hamas's ability to govern or present a threat. And it is clear from pictures like this one, it is clear that they have not achieved that goal yet, and that right now they're going backwards. They may be getting some of their living hostages out, but militarily, their hold on Gaza is in retreat. Now, I just want to point something out in this photograph here that I think is telling, something that many people might not notice. I'm going to zoom in on this guy right here in the center of the screen. You see he's wearing a plate carrier. That plate carrier is meant to hold his body armor. It usually has plates in it that would be bulletproof. But you can tell from the crease in the plate carrier that he does not have any plate in that carrier. And so this is all for show. We don't know if any of these weapons have very much ammo, but what we can tell from little glimpses that we're getting here from stuff like this is that while Hamas is putting on, let's call it terrorist theater, they're putting on a good show of terrorist theater in Gaza. They may not actually have as much control as it appears. They still have guns, obviously. They may not have a lot of ammo. I mean, they obviously have some ammo. They still have uniforms, but uniforms that they will take off and hide as soon as Israel starts shooting again. They don't apparently have any actual body armor, so they're not as well equipped as it might appear. Israel has certainly done a good job of dramatically reducing the amount of weaponry that they have at their disposal in the last 15 months. And I think it's very likely that they will continue in that vein once the first phase of the ceasefire is over.